Brandon Weber is the proprietor of this wonderful space, the Urban Hive, and he also is the licensee for TEDx Sacramento, and he's going to tell you a little bit about the TEDx Sacramento City event coming up.
I just want to, how many of you are familiar with TED? Oh, very cool, right, it's so different from 2 years ago. But we have an event, we do locally organized events, which are TEDx events, and we have our TEDx Sacramento C210. We actually set our major event at the Crocker about 5 weeks ago, and we're doing another event that's all focused around the city. And so we have everything from, we actually have a Nobel laureate speaking and a mayor speaking, and then we have organic urban farmers speaking. So it's a great mix of people talking about ideas to make our cities more sustainable and our cities better. And the event will be happening, we'll be having an event on Friday night, and then we'll also be having another event on Saturday morning. And you can find out information at tedxsacramento.com pretty easy. Thanks a lot.
And a plug for my boss, my day job, the job that pays me that I don't volunteer for, is called SARTA, the Sacramento Regional Technology Alliance. And my boss, the CEO, Meg Arnold, is one of the speakers at TEDx City on Friday. So, very exciting. So I wanted to talk to you today a little bit more about professional membership. It should only take about an hour, so I hope you don't mind. But a lot of times people don't realize that we are a membership organization, because you don't have to be a member to come to our events, but there are some benefits for professional members. One is that we do quarterly how-to workshops, and professional members get to attend those for free. Otherwise, it's a $15 admission. And then one of the really cool benefits of being a professional member that the global organization puts on is monthly book club webinars. It's a members-only benefit. This month on October 11th, social TV book authors Mike Prolx, how would you say P-R-O-U-L-X? Prolx and Stacy Shepperton are going to be doing the webinar, and I do have some information on that here. You will have to provide your user ID with Social Media Club if you are a professional member to be able to listen in on the webinar. And then they also do record those so that if you're a member and you're not able to watch it when it's live, you can go back and watch it later. So we actually have this book, Social TV. How many of you have heard of the concept of social TV? A few of you, okay. How many of you, while watching your favorite program, see a hashtag? Okay, that's part of social TV. Basically, television is taking the experience outside of just the time slot. They have websites, they have games, they have webisodes, all those sorts of things. This is an area that is really growing rapidly, and most of us participate in that as users rather than as marketers. But I have this book, Social TV, to raffle off as the first prize, and we'll do the rest later. So, got your. Did you have a raffle ticket?
Right.
Did they give you two? Did they give you 2 pieces there? Okay, just get the showing that. Okay. All right. So you guys are all excited about this book. Okay, and the winner of Social TV is 102587. Do we have a winner? We do. There you go. There you go. Okay, so very quickly, I want to recognize our sponsors, the Urban Hive, Hot Italian, who provided the pizza, and then Carrie Shearer, who is live streaming for us tonight. And without further ado, I want to introduce you to Sean Farrell, political and campaign consultant. Sean is also a member of the leadership team for Social Media Club, and he's going to take it away.
And I'm going to give you a little bit more background about myself. I currently work for 2 lobbying firms in Sacramento who specialize in statewide politics primarily. We also do some degree of federal work and some degree of local, but again, mainly state. I additionally have worked on statewide political campaigns and local campaigns for local candidates for fire board, school board, things like that. And I have also done a number of different things with nonprofit organizations just on a volunteer basis. This is one of them, as it turns out. Who knew? Who could have guessed? I also work with the National Alliance on Mental Illness, their California office. I helped them establish their social media policy and implement that as well. And I will let the panelists here introduce themselves, because I'm sure they know much more about themselves than I do about them. So, Tori, please.
Hi, I'm Tori Thianu. I'm a political reporter for the Sacramento Bee and our blog, Capital Alert. I'm on Twitter, Capital Alert, that's capital with an O. I guess my connection to this panel is that I tweet about politics a lot, and I also write about things that politicians and campaigns tweet about.
My name is Anita. I'm the communications director for the California Forestry Association, and just recently the executive director for the Forest Foundation. I've only been there for about 4 months, so we're just building up the social media campaign as well as their just online platform and strategy. But previously I was Ogilvy Public Relations for about 4 years, a little 4 years. Worked on a lot of statewide and national campaigns. Being in Sacramento, a lot of government campaigns, including Don't Trash California, campaigns for California community colleges, as well as the redistricting campaign for We Draw the Lines, with after the proposition was passed to do redistricting in California.
And I'm Anna Sandoval, and I'm the Communications and Operations Director at Planned Parenthood Affiliates of California. We're the statewide public policy office for the 8 local Planned Parenthood affiliates who actually do all of our health center work, and we concentrate on public affairs and public policy in Sacramento. My sort of relationship to this is Lindsay and I had worked together on a couple of ballot initiative campaigns in the past years, and as well as I've done some communications consulting work with the Mississippi Personhood No on 26 campaign last year, and we always are doing, I'm reading Tori's tweets on a daily basis.
Back and forth.
Yeah, back and forth on things, just because we're trying to keep up on what's happening at the state capitol, because so much of our health center work providing preventive care is really about regulatory and legislative work.
So to get started, the Pew Research Center's Internet and American Life project did a study on the influence of social media in politics, and I just wanted to get your opinions individually, we can go down the line here, on what you view to be on a broad scale, the influence of social media on the political climate here in California.
I think you definitely have seen how it's grown throughout the past couple of campaign cycles and in the legislature. It's by nothing else by the number of state legislators and politicians and the presence on Twitter. I mean, just a couple years ago, there were a couple of lawmakers who tweeted actively. The kind of junkies were on there. We were getting started a Capital Alert Twitter feed, and now it's everybody's on Twitter. And I get calls from people all the time, sources, campaign operatives. They're not complaining about what I'm writing on the paper. They're complaining about something I've tweeted or something one of my colleagues has tweeted. And that to me kind of speaks to the influence that social media has, or the weight that people on the other side of the game, for me, put on the messages that go out on social media and how important those are.
Yeah, I agree. In the last couple of years, you have to be on Facebook or Twitter or on social media, because that's where most people from the younger generation, that's where most people get their news. A majority of the people that have Facebook get their news and spend, I think, about 30% of their time looking at their news feeds. So that's where people are starting to get their information. The top 10 sites on the internet now are social media sites. So it's definitely a big player on how you reach out to people and get your information to the correct target.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I mean, as far as from a grassroots standpoint, if you look at the political side of our organization, the public policy side, our Twitter feeds and Facebook pages are much more active on those sides than they even are on our health center sides. Our national office, their action page has 343 likes. And if you look at the actual health center side, the Planned Parenthood Federation of America, that's maybe 23,000. So you can see where people's activities really are, because they want to know. It's about news. It's about what's happening today.
It's also driven our coverage, and we're not always competing for who can get a blog out first or who can break a story in the paper. You're competing to break news on Twitter a lot of times. And the people in the Capitol community especially, who are such diehard political junkies, want every piece of news right away as soon as it happens, really are demanding that. And so for us, it's changed our job as political journalists as well. And the types of things, not the types of things that we focus on for the paper, but getting something up on Twitter first as opposed to making sure it's right and accurate and newsworthy enough, as opposed to making all the calls and fleshing out an entire story before you go live with news.
And reporters definitely dominate Twitter for sure, and getting active on Facebook. But for a membership organization, it's also Facebook and other social media sites. People want to know what their friends are talking about as well. And they definitely, where people are getting their influence has changed from being more of the friends and who they know, from more of authority figures, C-level people. That's kind of shifting towards who you know and who you trust, which is your friends, and where you're getting your information from has changed as well.
Right. I can go and look and see what all of my sources and all of my followers are talking about. Like, what's the most buzzworthy thing in the Capitol or in the campaigns today? I mean, Twitter, it's like an instant poll of everybody in your little Capitol community or in your list of Twitter, whatever Twitter list you have, what the most buzzworthy or newsworthy things of the day might be.
Right. I'm sorry. I think it actually drives the way we look at how we're sending communication out too. You're looking at whether or not you can do something visual, whether you have the kind of finances that would allow you to put together a video, or you're bringing cameras so that you can tweet out photos. It's anything that actually you think is going to catch the eye, and it creates a different way for us to look at how we reach out to the media or how we reach out to our members.
So on that, on the note of, okay, so I just find it funny that, not that long ago, we had maybe 3 channels total, right? Maybe 4 on a good day, depending on how good your antenna was. And now we've gone to.
Remember those days?
I was going to say, that seems like more my experience.
I heard stories. I think I read it somewhere. And then, now we're at this point of just this hyper-specialized news source. This every bit of information you get can be, if you choose it to be, tailored to you. I mean, the difference between Fox News and MSNBC is an example that's gone back, probably a decade or so, maybe longer. But now it's gone even further. And how do you utilize such? How do you target so specifically in each of your social media outreaches?
Do you guys want to start?
Well, we've actually at Planned Parenthood, as we're moving forward with the campaign, have really thought a lot about and have made use of Facebook ads, and are moving now toward, when we're putting together a campaign budget, how much we're going to put aside in our campaign budgets to do banner ads on websites. And we now have a new, which I can talk about either now or later, a mobile voter guide, which we're currently promoting nationwide in banner ads and things like that. So that now has to be built in. Social media has to be built into a campaign plan. There's no getting away from it.
I would say one of the things that definitely has been helpful that I've learned is just doing the research, and you're constantly doing the research on the keywords, where people are having the conversation, what language they're using, where they're having the conversation, and that definitely helps target who's online, who's talking, how do you engage them, and what is important to them, and how do you reach them. Because we're constantly always talking, the conversation's happening whether you're there or not, so you need to find where those conversations are happening and where you can be effective and put yourself into.
And also taking advantage of the conversations that are already happening and inserting yourself into those conversations as much as you can. You know, sometimes the conversations, I think it was really interesting at the beginning where I saw a lot of my colleagues wanting to control the conversation in many ways, and now understanding that it's not a conversation that you can't control or that you want to control anymore. That, you know, you have to let your supporters be out there for you and willing to put out their support in a very public way, and we've taken advantage of that.
I guess from our perspective, to be a political journalist, there is so much information out there and so much noise that people really just want to know what are the facts, and is this campaign telling the truth, or is that ad really getting the message right there on what this initiative would do or whatever. So we've tried to step in and really serve as, you know, we do put a lot of emphasis on fact checks and context and analysis, and hope that even though people can get their news anywhere and they might be able to find news that reflects their or blogs or news or information directly from the campaigns or the politicians that reflects their own personal political leanings, that they'll still turn to, you know, respected traditional news sources for that sort of one step removed, independent fact checker type of journalism.
You both. Everyone seemed to touch at least minorly on the idea of engagement, and I've seen this in campaigns, and I've seen this in campaigns really at all levels, regardless of whether or not it's for a candidate or for an issue. They feel as they're still utilizing it as a means of broadcasting their message. They're still utilizing it as though it were television, and it just doesn't work the same way. So could you briefly comment on the ways that you involve the communities that you reach out to in order to get them more engaged in the conversations that you want to have with them?
Well, I would say first, I do think the campaigns, including the presidential campaigns, are doing more engagement. I mean, things like you see the hashtags even, that taking whatever gaffe or little snippet or slogan of the day, I mean, that's a way of retweeting people or featuring people who are using those hashtags, or having more personal tweets like Mitt Romney's bodyguard type things that are a little bit more less just here's the message of the day, here's the slogan. But we do try to do a lot of engagement at the Bee. I try to respond to people on Twitter when they ask me a question. I don't always know the answer to what they're asking me, since our Twitter feed also includes just headlines to stories that I didn't write. So we try to incorporate our readers that way in social media, and we also do live chats, which are on our website but often do incorporate Twitter as well, either based on a hashtag, people that are tweeting out about the debate or about whatever the event of the day that we're covering. They might be feeding into our live chat or being able to add or ask questions there. We also do try to use Facebook, Facebook poll questions and caption contesty things and comment on this story. We're always trying to get people to engage and comment and share our stories on Facebook, and involving them in that by asking a question or asking you to vote on a poll, we've found is an easier way to get people involved to share.
Yeah, I completely agree with what Troy just said. For an association point of view, like this is social media and like we need to be on there, but one of the best parts or the best way to be successful in social media, I find, is being active offline and doing interesting things offline and making sure that you're having that personal connection and you're talking to people and you're getting them other ways to get excited about, and then bringing it online and moving the relationship that you've created on a personal level to online, and then them empowering, giving them more to talk about and giving them, empowering them more to talk about what you would like them to talk about, the activities that you're doing or the issues that you think are important to them.
Right. I think that it's really important for me to remember that social media is one aspect of the entire campaign. One of the ways when we were working on the Mississippi 26 campaign last year at this time. At the time, Rachel Maddow had called it, and I don't know if anybody had seen some of her shows, the DIY campaign, the do-it-yourself campaign. We really got people engaged through social media by asking them to take photos of themselves and talk about why this initiative was bad for them. And we got the most amazing photos from women, you know, who were there with their daughters, or 3 generations of women talking about how that particular initiative was going to be bad for their health and bad for others. And that continued, and once we took those and put them onto the Facebook pages that we had established. And one woman there actually was part of the campaign, but not part of the campaign. A young woman named Atlee Breland Parks, who had her own Facebook page called Mississippian Parents Against Mississippi 26. And she became a very integral part of the campaign, mainly reaching out to other parents like her who were concerned about how the initiative was going to affect in vitro fertilization. And it was those real stories, I think, that got other people engaged. And so that from the outside, the campaign was really about the people in Mississippi and didn't look like this corporate you know, ballot initiative campaign, because it wasn't. It came really from the grassroots up.
People do like social, I mean, it's social media for a reason. People like personality and a sense of authenticity to Twitter, that if all you're doing is sending out your campaign slogan, or if all we're doing is sending out headlines and links, I mean, that's not really using it effectively.
That's a good point. From the grassroots perspective, it's like for the Forestry Association, we're probably not going to be the most popular group on Facebook ever, but it's not about being the most popular to us. It's being engaging to those people that are effective and want to be helpful, and how we can give them reasons and cause to get out there and do what they love to do. So for us, it's like we welcome everybody, but we know that we're not going to get a mass. So how can we be more helpful to the ones that are interested in what we're doing?
So, but one of the inherent risks involved with increased engagement with whatever base of folks that you're trying to reach out to is that there are going to be people that disagree with you. So how do you work to, one, make sure that they're not saying inappropriate things on your pages, and 2, still try to maintain a positive message at a time where you'd really like to be a little bit negative with somebody?
I'll answer. You know, one of the things that I had found as we were starting to move into social media, and had cautioned people at the beginning who didn't understand why we were going that way and were very scared, once again, or very controlling of the messages, was many times our supporters were our best advocates. And when we found, because we find that many times there will be not paid professionals, but certainly trolls who are out there, you know, dropping little bombs into comments, and it's our supporters who are really coming to our defense and saying, that's not the Planned Parenthood I know. I don't know what you're talking about. And many times if you start scrubbing pages of negative things, then you leave yourself open to people, even your supporters, saying, why are you scrubbing those pages? What are you trying to hide? We don't have anything to hide. And we believe that the support that we get from, you know, the women who are coming to our health centers is worth more than anything for us and the Planned Parenthood brand.
Yeah, you definitely have to do your work outside of the social media posts that you put up there to make sure that you are giving your supporters good background information and just information, I guess, in general to help you out when those people come in and attack you. The other thing is, if you try to control the message too much, like Anna said, is that you'll lose credibility, but also you're not empowering your supporters to do more for you. They might think of things that you never ever thought of. So, like recently NASA had the big landing on Mars, it wasn't NASA that did the real-time panoramic view. It was a fan of theirs that put that together with still pictures and gave them my idea to do that. So if you try to limit how people are active on your page or how they interact with you, you could be also missing out some great opportunities.
Well, I mean, even from a campaign perspective, though, like you said, there are a number of people who aren't necessarily paid, but who potentially are volunteers or who are with an opposition party who will purposefully go on and try to incite a negative conversation, whether that be through expletives or through just general attacks. And do you see that very often when you're dealing in social media, or for the most part is it more tame and less aggressive than that?
For the controversial campaigns that I have worked on, we have commenting policies, and so with expletives, you're not allowed to. And like a lot of people will report them on their own. Your supporters will, and people just on the page, even if they're not your supporters, people don't generally like it when you're just blabbering your mouth and saying inappropriate things. So it does happen. That's why you have commenting policies. You let them know, you give them warnings. A lot of times other people will turn them in because that's just not how people want to interact on Facebook.
Yeah, I think that the community many times will censor its own if people start getting really out of line. That's not to say that you don't take a really bad post if it's just off the wall off, because that isn't where you want to be, but really 9 times out of 10 you don't need to, because your supporters are the ones who are coming to your defense.
I think there is an interesting question though with all of the, so many people can post anonymously when it is a paid campaign operative or something like that. I mean, I've heard stories about, campaigns or going to the comment section because the other side will complain about it. And I know that that's so-and-so working for that campaign under the, I love children username or whatever. So I think that there's a whole new set of questions with the internet and lots of activity on social media where you can start Twitter, you can start essentially anonymous website attacking someone else, which we've dealt with in some stories at the Bee. You can create Facebook profiles, lots of questions about where the information is coming from and who's behind it. We kind of see our role in trying to identify that to the best we can. If there's a spoof account on Twitter or if there's an anonymous website, we don't do anything to regulate. We have a comment policy on SACP.com that takes out things that, curse words or really blatant hate speech, things like that. But we can't really get involved and take off things that might be just the talking points for one side or the other. We want to have as free of a dialogue as we can on our pages.
So, I mean, I hear a lot about citizen journalism in this regard, and just in investigative journalism particularly, in that you're relying to a degree on your supporters to fact check these people. But in what ways can you then make sure that the facts that they're presenting in opposition to a point of opposition are accurate? Or can you?
I would say that the fact check sheets that I get from campaigns are not always the facts. That's what I would say about that.
As someone who's given them to you.
Yes, so it's funny because whenever we do ad watches, as I said, pretty regularly, and when I call someone and say, look, I'm going to analyze your ad, can you send me facts? Oh, yeah, we've got it right here. And they'll send us side by side, here's the one line of the ad and here's the facts to back it up. And I'm just like, that doesn't really, there's a disconnect here. Are we reading the same things? So I'd say that's I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but we certainly I find it's very difficult sometimes to identify what's true and what's not in an ad because there's a lot of gray area, especially in political rhetoric. But I think that you do have things like Twitter and Facebook. Things can go viral so fast, and there's so much sharing that one person can tweet out a fact, or all of the campaigns are fact checking their candidate and the other guy during the debates and things like that in real time. And there's not room for citations on Twitter. I mean, it's just their word. It's just where they're saying it's true.
I think that's the difference between having sort of a personal account and having what would be a more branded corporate Twitter account. So I have my own personal Banana Babe 44 account where I will go out and talk about, oh my goodness, baseball mostly lately, but retweeting things about reproductive health care and other things. If I'm going to move something out on the PP Action CA account, I'm going to try to if it's something, that could be controversial, I'm going to source it out before I do it. My background is traditional journalism. I was a reporter many moons ago, and I do believe that that's necessary for any organization to keep its credibility. One of the sort of pillars of our brand is that people come to us because they expect accurate information. If it's sexual health, if it's what the candidates are saying about women's health, and we want to honor that with our supporters and making sure that we're not retweeting something that we don't think is accurate. Retweet Tori a lot.
Yeah, that's great. So there's a lot of gray area, so you don't want to ever leave a charge on the table, but then there's a point if it's really worth riling it up and getting more opposition against you. So it's you really have to judge it on a case-by-case basis, I think.
Now, do you think that there's any degree to which social media should be regulated aside from, organizations have social media policies that take away expletives or take away X, Y, or Z, but even just in campaign work, there are times you just don't want the candidate to be tweeting. Like, that's not, not the way to go. Not the way to go at all. So are there, what measures do you take to ensure that the messages that are going out there really are the messages that are supported by your organization, in every regard?
Are you talking about personal or
not personal? No.
Corporate.
From the corporate perspective.
From the organizational.
Yeah. Personally, you can do whatever you want. Yeah. Well, unless you're a candidate, and then don't do whatever you want.
That's news.
Yeah, that's a very good point, because even when I'm tweeting as myself, I will keep in the back of my mind that people may associate me with my employer, and I want to make sure that, I also don't want to look like an idiot, to social media. So I always keep that in the back of my mind. It sort of stuns me, and maybe I'm just very old school at the things that people will put as part of their feed, and then look back, and when people say, well, why did you do that? It's like, don't you understand that this is something that anybody can get a hold of? I think that's always the concern that even parents have when their teens are out on Facebook, and certainly the new law that was signed, not getting a Facebook password or whatever, not looking at Facebook for employers. You have to look at it. It's part of public domain, and I think that we never, at least I never, lose sight of that.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just say one way that we do it is that in our Facebook bio or on our Twitter account, we include Lindsay Nina tweets for this account, and I'll just always put a caret in my initials to make sure that people are distinguishing this is a comment that I posted, and make sure that they aren't associating it with the CEO or the president or the candidate or other stuff like that.
My disclosures are more like retweets don't equal endorsements. That's a pretty typical one for journalists, and you do have to be aware of it. I remember when I first started and started getting involved in Twitter, it was during the gubernatorial race, early stages of the 2010 gubernatorial race, and I got a call one day from one of the campaigns, and they were very upset because they felt like I was retweeting the other person more, or the campaign, the flags for the other campaign more. And it wasn't even something I had thought about at the time. I just was seeing their tweets more often, or they were tweeting things that were more newsworthy, which in that case was totally appropriate on my part, but you know, you really have to think about who are you retweeting? Is there some sort of angle or undertone, subtext to what they're saying that people might misinterpret or makes it look like I have a political opinion or I'm supporting what they're saying? Kind of how I have to keep removed in that way.
So from the personal perspective, I feel as though if I were going to run for office myself, that probably wouldn't go well. Like that probably, I am a more open person in social media feeds than I probably should be to be eligible for candidacy. Do you feel like that is a pox on our generation? That is the younger people are preventing themselves from viable political races going forward based on what they're putting on social media feeds?
Is it a pox, or I always wonder, looking in a forward thing, is it an inoculation? That what I would consider as a 15, listen to me, as a 54-year-old woman, what I would consider something that would make me go, whoa, I can't believe they just posted that online, you guys wouldn't think twice of. And I wonder if, as more and more people are so much more open on social media, if it just, we are inoculating ourselves against what other people would see as an outrageous comment.
There's certainly some embarrassment to be had by things that people say. I guess it depends on what the degree of it is. I mean, there have been a couple of instances in the past year that I can think of where I don't think the person on the campaign or staff even got fired. I mean, there was an aide to Debbie Wasserman Schultz who Facebook picture from her college days surfaced where she and her friends were posing saying they were like Jew Money Club, and she was the director of Jewish outreach. She was Jewish herself. It was a college photo from like 6 years ago. So right, that's very embarrassing, and some conservative blogs found it and put it out, and there were, I think the congresswoman had to respond at some point. But as far as I know, that woman still has her job, and was a candidate for the legislature who, actually there was a FPPC complaint filed against him because he had been posting from Facebook in times he should have been at work, when we worked for the legislature, and it was pictures of his shoes and I closed my Bank of America account. I feel like I just got out of Auschwitz. Like, really crazy stuff. But he's going to win an election to the assembly. So I don't think that people.
I agree.
For him, these are things he didn't even think about or think would go public. These just things that he's joking to his friends. But when you put it in the context of a campaign, it can sound bad. Maybe it'll be on a campaign mailer. Do people a little more lenient about social media and what people post on it?
Maybe our expectation of the people that are running for office get a little bit higher.
So, do you think that this increase in social media will result in greater transparency for candidates moving forward? I mean, has it already, and will it continue to going into the future?
I don't think it contributes to transparency. I think it contributes to, I think you have to be very aware of what you want to put out there. I think people are being more mindful about it. It's just how you present yourself at work. Basically, how do you want to present yourself on social media? So it's just being more mindful. I don't know if it necessarily will contribute to transparency. I don't see that.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's the cynic in me. I think it just offers people a new way to get out what they want about themselves to begin with. It's just another format, another form, another platform for them to get out the same message. So is it being more transparent? I don't know. Taking a picture of your shoes, I don't know if that's being more transparent.
I think it is message. I think it does give more message control. I mean, campaigns, candidates, politicians, you see more and more going straight to putting their information out directly to the people through social media, through tweets, announcing things on Twitter. YouTube video, who needs to have a press conference when you can announce something on YouTube and email it out to the masses and not have any questions from reporters, and have people see it directly without the news anchor commenting on it, or the journalist writing the context about why you're doing what you're doing. So in some ways, there can definitely be less transparency in terms of all of the different accounts and websites and things like that come up, and who's getting paid to do what. Is your personal life a little bit more at risk of being on display? Yes, but I think with a generational shift too, people are, Facebook was new for me when I was going into college, and for my brothers who are younger than me, they've grown up with it. They've had Facebook since they were like 10 years old, and they kind of know all of these stories of the risks. They post really stupid things still, but maybe their kids won't. So
I think they probably will.
Yeah.
I think kids will continue to make bad decisions moving forward. I think we can pretty much count on that.
But people also don't realize that things that are on the internet, it's more permanent, it's out there, and things are searchable, and public records are more and more available on the internet, and caching web pages and things like that. So, maybe you have a digital trail.
So do you think that, transparency aside, do you think that the voters feel more connected to an issue, to an organization, to a candidate because of their social media presence?
Yeah, there's been a lot of studies done where corporations and organizations that have blogs are just more honest when you put your opinion out there, I think, and give people a chance to respond to you and have an actual conversation. Then I definitely think that helps you with connecting with people. Barack Obama did a event just the other night after the debate, where he just said, "I'm online, ask me any questions." Like, it's just another way where he can engage with people that he wouldn't be able to online. So it definitely will help build connections that you can't necessarily do just logistically.
Right, I think that it gives people a new opportunity to show their support. I think my thoughts is, how do you turn that support? We have, like I said, from a national standpoint, we have 600,000 plus likes of our Facebook page. I think that the real challenge for us is, how do we change those likes into someone who is going to take direct action, in support of either Planned Parenthood or our policies. I think you saw it happen, as you always do. If there's something that really engages people in a different way. When in 2011, in DC, they were looking to defund, the state family planning program. They were looking to defund Planned Parenthood. That was enough to make people take action and to call their legislators. So sometimes it's not necessarily the social media part that gives them a vehicle to do it, but the activity then, or whatever is happening, actually will spark them to make that second call in. And you can say, this is happening, you need to call your senator now. And if it's something that they're engaged in, they'll do it because they're seeing it on their Facebook page, because they're seeing us tweet it out.
That's staying current and being connected with them. And again, it's being active offline and knowing what's going on offline makes you more relevant and actual resource to your supporters, which I think is really important. That I think gets lost because people, when they think of social media campaigns, you're just thinking what you can do online, but what you can do online really should be a basis of what you're doing outside of the bigger picture. You really have to do it all these days.
Definitely has changed things, I think, for print journalists especially. We're used to just having a byline, like our name and some ink on a newspaper, and now you've got your Twitter feed, your picture. People recognize you from Twitter, and they tweet at you, and they want to have a back and forth, and I think they feel like they know you a little bit more. And I think more and more journalists, for better or worse, are sharing more and more personal things, like the people who are embedded on the campaigns, and about their personal experience, and it's a little bit of, okay, what's it like behind the curtain, as well, which is a change. You're more you're more part of the story now as a journalist, and you need to be really aware of that. And it's worked out well. I mean, Twitter, I connect with people a lot. I'll be at a convention or at a press conference, and sometimes someone will direct message me or tweet at me who I've never met before, but I'll say, oh, I've got this news tip, or oh, I'm with this campaign, or it helps me make connections that I wouldn't have made otherwise.
So for our audience members that are interested in being more involved in the conversation, both on and offline, what would you recommend to them?
Follow Capital Alert.
VP
And click on
Action
everything. Click on the blog, please.
Okay, plugs aside. Like how do you become that person who is involved in that conversation? How do you become someone who's worth listening to if they go and post online? Or like, how do you become a volunteer? Like, what are the ways that you can get involved if you want to be involved?
From a social media standpoint, or
From both perspectives. Like from a social media perspective, like, okay, so let's say I see a tweet and I say to myself, that sounds great. Then what do that's horrible, or something to that effect. What do I do then? What happens next? What's the process to get involved?
I mean, we try to direct people back to our website or back to our action pages, or give them something to do, and then follow it up, because many times we're trying to touch them in different ways. We are sending out tweets, we are posting something on our Facebook page that says, hey, call the governor today, ask him to sign a bill that's going to expand birth control access. At the same time, we're also reaching out to our advocates via email that gives them a link to be able to do that. So the kind of things that we're posting, particularly on Facebook, includes direct links so that they can take that action almost immediately. And one of the things that we are trying to do is to make sure that whatever step we're reaching out to our supporters, that they don't have to take 3 different steps to get where they want to go. And I think that that's been sort of a failure for other organizations. You go there and you have to do this, and then you have to go to this page, and then you have to go to a third place. And if you do that, 9 times out of 10, you are going to lose people. They want to be able to go to a page, take the action, and be done with it.
Yeah, I completely agree with Anna. You have to give them something, you have to tell them what to do, you have to give them an action to take. If you don't, then more likely or not, it stops there. They're going to read it, and they're going to like, oh, like that's really interesting, or oh, I want to help. But if you don't tell them how they can help, they most likely won't. If you just put on your retweet this, then it's like 9 times more likely to be retweet. But if because people just need that reminder, or that extra step to let them help.
Yeah, and I actually am quite curious in getting involved more and more in social media. Is the conversation itself then becoming an activity? If you're trending on Twitter, is that really an activity for you to get your message out? So many times we want to concentrate on getting people to move, and I've seen people saying, well, if you're just retweeting, is that really an activity? Are you really doing something that is furthering the cause? But I'm beginning to wonder if that simple retweet is causing something to trend, then you are in fact doing something, because you're creating this larger conversation, on social media.
So often it can feel like an echo chamber, though, too. I mean, especially if your follower list is self-selected, people you want to follow, people who have, mine is like crazy political junkies. And I can't even have Twitter on during the debates, really, because it's just like way too much. So you have to step back and say, what's happening? Someone had a great tweet the other day that was like, thank goodness for Twitter, or else I'd only have one copy of the candidates' prepared remarks instead of line by line from 6 different people during the speech. But you've got to step back and say, like, okay, is this resonating outside the bubble? If as a journalist, everyday people care about this, the rest of our readers. What does this actually mean that someone had this little gap that everybody's tweeting about very intensely for 20 minutes? Is that really going to drive the day? Is it really news?
Awesome. And then from an organization point of view, it's like there's only one of me, or there's like 2 of us. Like, we cannot be on 8 different social media sites. So I think it's really important to focus on what is going to get you to your goal and what can you actually do. Because we all want to be everywhere, but if you're not doing anything well, then it's really not helping your organization get the message out and putting the best foot forward for them.
Right. I think we all have, I think, capacity issues, and I think that I was talking to somebody earlier today about the feedback that I get from various communicators who are concerned about the amount of capacity it takes to care, the care and feeding of a particular Twitter account. And to them, until they get involved in it, it seems really daunting, and my saying no, sometimes it's just a matter of having it up, taking a look at it every once in a while, tweet, retweet, whatever, just to keep that constant, banter going. That it's not as daunting at all. I also wonder, back to Tori, what you were saying, is when everybody's talking about it, when the debate is happening, is your voice getting lost in the crowd? You have to be really creative as a writer to break through when something like the debate is trending. And there are certain people who are able to do that. But sometimes it has to do with their celebrity. It has to do with a variety of factors. Monday Night Football, that one tweet from that one Green Bay player must have been retweeted 33,000. I think he set a record, 40,000. Was it because it was him? It wasn't necessarily what he was saying, but it was in the middle of this deluge of people being angry at referees. So how do you make that balance, and what do you say? Is it as much what you're writing, or sometimes I wonder, is it just the luck of the draw?
Yeah, the debate, I read that the debate was, Twitter said, I think, was like the most tweeted political event in U.S. history, which, Twitter's lifespan is pretty short. But I think that is, you can just get lost, and I think it speaks to how much people want to weigh in. They want to talk back, they want to be involved in the conversation. It's like this peanut gallery. Everybody's got something to say about the debate or the candidate, or wants to get their version of what they're seeing out there. And maybe that's enough. Maybe that's what people want to use it.
And then for like Facebook and stuff, there are things that you can do to make your posts come up more. Facebook use Edgemark, and it's like posting pictures, using inbound links, using certain words will push your post to be seen more often and to be seen longer. So there are things that you can do to try to get your message out there in the forefront.
And just quickly to kind of wrap up here, how do you think that social media will expand into the political realm moving forward, or will it at all? Has it reached a max, or will it continue kind of expanding into the political realm and affecting the political arena even more than it already has begun to?
I think it'll be interesting to look at mobile usage with social media, especially. The statistics about the number of voters who have or use their cell phones, I think that was in the Pew study that you referenced as well. People are just connected to their phones and their smartphones. They can get information. They can fact check on their phones during the debate. They can download an app and call voters. Do phone banking from your phone. You can text a political donation. They're setting that up in California now. And so I think that that's a real area of expansion that'll be just fascinating to watch. People have experimented. People have been pushing some people to do initiative signatures for initiative petitions on your smartphone. And all of that can really, I think, change a lot of changes on the political landscape.
It's a shame. Digitally, my signature looks like I'm a toddler.
Yeah, has been part of some of the court cases surrounding that whole issue.
Well, let me give a plug then to where we're going. I'm glad you talked about mobile. Planned Parenthood is currently promoting our mobile voter guide, and it's one of the things that we want to do for our activists and our supporters. It is ppactionvoterguide.org. Is the website, but you can go into it using your mobile phone and you can find out for us how the candidates are on women's health issues. And we really felt strongly that once again people look to us to provide information, so that's the reason that we went out with the National Mobile Voter Guide. Our online director out of San Jose was one of the people who actually helped put this together for our national office. And I think that more and more people are going to, the old voter guides that you get, the mailers that you get, everything else is going to go on mobile. Number one, it's cheaper, and it also allows you to really drill down from, who's the presidential candidate to congressional and local, all the way down to school board, and that's what I think people are looking for, and they can bring it with them into the voting booth.
Yeah, I would agree. Mobile is definitely going to be the biggest thing where people are going to do more new and innovative things and get more involved in it. More people are not using the computer at home. They're using their smartphone. They're on their smartphone all the time. I'm not checking Facebook on my computer anymore. I'm checking Facebook on my smartphone. So I think people will definitely take advantage of that. And I just think social media, there's barely any rules onto social media, so sky's the limit and we're just beginning, I think.
Awesome. And now I'm going to open it up to questions from the audience. So, whoever, yes?
Do you think that the surge in social media will bring about the demise of independent expenditure campaigns?
As someone who helps to run them, I'd say no. It's a difficult thing to delve into, just because I think that Citizens United got a lot more hype as an idea than it warranted in California specifically, because we've allowed that type of expenditure in California before that. We just more strictly regulate how that's told to the public, and it's difficult to get around the idea that you have the right to donate to a candidate as an organization because of Citizens United, certainly, but also because of other court cases from as far back as the 70s that say something similar.
I would say that certainly social media can help, like we talked about fact checking and things, can help with promoting disclosure. People can share, oh, this mailer that I got, has anybody else gotten it? Who's it from? Or they can share stories about it. Especially in a state like California, I mean, it still takes a lot of money to win, and people haven't figured out, campaigns haven't figured out, you can't reach all voters, especially likely voters like older people on Twitter. So you need the money for the mailers, for the TV ads, for the radio ads, that sort of thing. And also people haven't figured out how to turn a tweet into someone actually going and taking that action and voting yet. Just like right now, you look at the two candidates running for U.S. Senate, I think it's fair to say that Elizabeth Empkin would win the social media prize if there was one in that campaign. She's very, very active, the Republican challenger to Dianne Feinstein. She really doesn't have very much money, and that means she has very little. Name ID is trailing by 20 plus points in the polls, I think, at this point. So
Yeah,
for now, money is it.
I think you saw the same with Carla Fiorina, who was very active on social media, but at many times, if that's not the universe that you're going to, particularly in a local race, if your universe is, white women over the age of 50, because, or if you're Republican, you're looking for older, white women over the age of 50 in a Republican district. Social media is probably not the way to go. you know, and TV's always going to be king,
Yeah,
you know.
TV and radio.
Mhm.
Social media is growing, but TV and radio definitely dominate on how people hear about political campaigns.
I mean, in the super long term, maybe? But
Not what
super.
people
Well,
die.
what you're seeing right now too is that the campaigns, including the presidential campaigns, are really targeting young voters with social media and with Twitter and Facebook, and that makes sense, and it's engagement, and maybe you can get more supporters or new voters or people to register, especially with, if you already have, I think it's if you already have to be on file with the DMV, but if you're a young voter, online voter registration in California, that sort of thing. But yeah, the high propensity voters, likely voters, are not your typical Twitter user.
No.
That's pretty safe to
I
say.
actually think it has more of an influence, or we've seen with, you know, the Obama campaign is in fundraising for candidates. And, you know,
Small
the
donations.
kind of small donations that have been coming in more and more. I mean, you're always going to be counting on large donations, you know, and large contributors, but I think that it was a game changer in 2008.
And with the texting, it's even more. I mean, people can, they campaign text you, text back $5. Oh,
Right.
why not? I just downloaded an app for that. Bought something on Farmville.
Sir.
Lindsay, you said you have to be very aware of what you put out there. As communications directors, and even Tori, as you and your coworkers, how much freedom does your new media team or does your coworkers have to communicate? Because oftentimes within our own organization, it's like an act of Congress just to post something, you know, of substance, you know, on our Facebook page. And how much freedom should there be to really just, you know, spout off, for lack of a better term?
Yeah, it's really hard, especially with organizations that are new to social media, because they want to control the message and stuff like that. But we're seeing more and more, when you put out a generic statement, it turns people off. So we definitely have to, as communications director, have to fight to give that unique statement that really answers a question and makes them feel like a conversation. If you just always say, you get a question, you always have the same like 3 lines that you always use, it will actually hurt you more. And so as far as me, as I'm on a new role, it's pushing them and having them understand. It's more, I think it's educating people that you're working with as much as it is working on social media. The messages itself is what are your goals and how are you going to get there?
Know your audience.
Know your audience,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, and making sure that people are well trained in some of the umbrella messages that you want to get out. You can have the same umbrella messages, but say them in different ways for different formats that you're going out. But you need to make sure that people have and are really aware that there's a definite area that you want to stay within.
Or just personalize it with the story. I think like, I believe in this, and this is why. Just making sure that, you know, it's coming from a certain person, but having that umbrella statement, but then also including a little extra personal touch of why it is the way you think or what you believe, I think is really helpful.
I've definitely gotten talked to once or twice by my supervisors. One too many tweet about puppies or oh really Tori, please don't tweet about happy hour, that sort of thing. But in our newsroom, we all have control of our own Twitter feeds. We do try to get some personal voice into those, but my colleagues and I are often bouncing things off each other. Does this cross the line? Because we're thinking about journalistic integrity and perceived conflict of interest. You know, if I respond to this person in that way or tweet this kind of snarky comment, will that be perceived as you know, a dig at that campaign or inappropriate? So we do a lot of kind of self-checking within our newsroom, usually among colleagues, not among our bosses. Just hope they don't.
That's a good
Good
route.
Yes.
You know, Tori, you were actually saying, and this kind of goes into that a little bit, you're saying, is this resonating outside the bubble? You know, I definitely understand that you get focused in the world of social media. How do you measure that?
How do I measure that?
The outside the bubble part of it.
Yeah, I mean, for us, it just comes down to, is this something that our readers need to know or would want to know, and can we add some context to whatever the story is. And part of our job, my job as a journalist, is not to, blow up something that is kind of trivial or minor into a big story that would go on the front page or something. It's a little like a Twitter fight or something. We have different avenues for that. Sometimes we do, if there's a lot of activity on Twitter, but it's not something that elevates to a story, we'll do a little blog post about it, or we'll use Storify to kind of capture or present to our readers the sentiment on Twitter, what people are saying on Twitter, without getting too wrapped up in it. And it just becomes a matter of priorities. What are the stories we need to cover?
I was gonna say, I talk, like if I want to reach out to a different group, I'll talk to somebody that I know is active in that group and say, how is this even where we should be going? Are you guys interested in this? What are your guys' interests? Is there any way we can work together? But having those offline conversations is really helpful just for your own knowledge of how you, if there's any way to even work together. Is this connection making sense?
We have time for one more question. Yes.
This is for Anna, but the rest of you can chime in. Your organization is primarily focused on providing healthcare and information, but inevitably you get dragged into political conversations whether you want to or not. And many of your opponents are extremely visceral and aggressive, and mudslinging and that kind of aggressive tactics are used. Is your strategy, do you ever get involved and throw mud back, or do you typically take a high road and try to avoid ever getting into sort of aggressive political fighting?
I think that from just a communicator standpoint, whether, beyond social media, traditional media, anything, from a communicator standpoint, it's always been our belief that you end up getting into the weeds and you don't get what the true message of your organization is if you started getting into these mudslinging battles. For us, it's always been about providing health care. So when other people want to make it about abortion, that's one element of what we were about. But 97% of what we do is provide health care for women. So there are many, for the longest time, people wanted to dance in that other area, and I don't think that it's respectful to women, and I don't think it's respectful to the organization to get into those mudslinging. It's never a positive outcome when you do it.
It's called chasing the white rabbit.
Yeah.
It's really enticing, but you never get to where you want to go.
And even from a candidate perspective, you generally, especially with social media, a lot of people view the message, even if you tag it, as coming from the candidate. And people view negative ads poorly. It doesn't poll well, negative ads. It works, but you can't have it coming from the candidate. It has to be coming from an outside source. Like, for example, funded by independent expenditure.
Not coordinated, of course.
No, nobody coordinates. Nobody does that. So that is all the time we have. I'm going to bring up Gary Dietrich, president of Citizens Voice, and he's going to tell us a little bit about his Citizens Voice in particular, a nonpartisan resource for election information. Gary?
Thank you, and I apologize for not being able to be here earlier. My 4th grade son got his advanced awards for reading and math. Hey, you got to be there. You know what I mean? You got to be there. But let me say something, and esteemed panel, I certainly wish I could have heard all of you guys. Read you, listen to you guys. Here's the deal. 2 numbers struck me this week. One is 2008. 70% of young folks say very interested, very engaged in the campaign. Fast forward 4 years, 2012, 50% say very engaged, very interested. Now, why do we care about that? Well, people like me, who came here 25 years ago to say, I want to do something. I just don't want to sit down at the gravy train underneath the gold ball and stare at the walls. Care about stuff like that. Okay? Second number that jumped out at me was this. Undecideds. 12% nationally. Take the poll. I don't care which one you pick. It's going to be 10 to 12% nationally. All right? 40% of those 34 and under. So the vast majority of undecideds fall in a younger demographic, which is what I think, truth be told, social media is still really all about. It won't be in 20 years, just like 20 years ago when I got my master's at the Kennedy School, nobody had a clue about social media because it wasn't around then. 25 years ago when I came to the Capitol, you'll find this astounding when people would call us and say, geez, does Senator McCorkey up when we send him a fax? No fax machine. Really? Nope. Walk it in or mail it. 5 years after that, when I was working for the Senate, there was email, finally, but you're not going to believe this. If you worked in the Senate, you could email other Senate staff. You couldn't email anybody in the Assembly. There was no conversation. It's just amazing to see where this has all come. So I commend you folks for being here tonight and taking the time to talk about this, because I think this is absolutely vital to the future of engaging the next generation or two in politics. Absolutely vital. And you know, those of you who have the misfortune of seeing me on radio or hearing me on, you know what I'm talking about. It's getting late already. Hearing me on radio, seeing me on TV, here's my deal right now. Okay, this is what I think is the real critical nexus right now. Whether it be what Tori's doing, it be on your electronic platforms and your print platforms or whatever. You still got a print platform, don't you? Okay. Anyway, just kidding. I mean, I'm old school, Tori. I got my subscription. It comes. I wake up every morning. Oh, I can't read to get the paper. All right, but here's the thing. At Citizen Voice, here's what we found. All right, this is where we are right now. The best thing going in politics is wedding these platforms. You guys may have talked about all this. The power right now, the real power in political media is finding that nexus between traditional media, new media / social media. Okay? Have we been successful? Let me share with you some numbers. Then I want to issue a little challenge to you tonight, okay, and be done. Dietrich, would you get off? Okay, fine. Here's the thing. 2008, we did a project never been done before in California. We drug both sides of each statewide proposition into PACSAT studios down here. We did what we call mini debates. Don't bore people. Don't lock the cameras down. Handhelds, tight shots, 10 to 12 minutes. Both sides, the head honchos of these debates. Okay? Over 1 million hits on our website 2008. We said, okay, 2012 non-presidential year, we'll be thrilled, especially given the candidates, if we can get 500,000 hits. We got over 2 million in the month before the election. Right? How do we do that? Using our traditional media platforms, of which I have a lot of exposure in, to drive people to the website, and then beginning really with the Able Help who I'll introduce you to in a moment, using social media to back that up and really begin to have this kind of amazing synergy between all these platforms. That's really where it is right now in my view. So here's my opportunity for you guys and my challenge. We are the only ones in the state, and I mean literally the only ones in the state who've done something like this. Okay, there's not enough resources anymore. And the KGO radio, I'm their political analyst in San Francisco, KFPK, KST here, Fox 40 here in Sacramento. Nobody has the resources anymore to sit down and do this internally. Can we say budget constraints in the media? Sorry, can we say that? Huh? Okay. So that's the deal. Seriously, I don't care what you're talking about. Cumulus with KGO, Clear Channel with those guys, Tribune with Fox 40, they're all in the same boat. So, what does that mean? It means it presents tremendous opportunities for people who are exploring the social media avenues to have a lot more influence than you would have otherwise vis-a-vis the traditional big boys, because they simply don't have the resources to do it. So here's my challenge to you tonight, okay? We got 1 million hits in 08, 2 million in 2012. We're the only people producing genuinely nonpartisan content on all the statewide propositions, available 24/7 on all these kinds of platforms. If you have social media capabilities or interests, I would love for you to get with us and get behind our effort to let as many people in California know. And by the way, we have a lot of media, traditional media people use our stuff too. Let as many people know about what citizenvoice.org is doing. Because my hope and my goal is that we're going to ramp up at least another 1 million hits. And when was the last time you heard of a nonprofit that got 3 million hits on their website in a couple months? It's nearly non-existent. Okay? I want to introduce 2 people to you because I've got to scoot, unfortunately, the way the world works here in media. land election. I got to be someplace else here at 8:30. Carrie Shear is our communications director.
Hi there.
You may know Carrie from, not only is he helping you with Ustream tonight, but Carrie has done traffic stuff for KPK and Fox 40 and others. Super guy, really understands this nexus I was talking about as well as anybody I know. And then Stephanie Becker. Steph, would you just raise your hand? These two people, I mean, I know about this much. They know about that much, okay? And I've exhausted my knowledge right now, all right? But these two guys can help you get dialed in, and I would love for you to talk with them afterwards about how you can engage people. Let me leave you with one encouragement. Some of you are going to know the name Dan Schnur. Okay, he was communications director for Wilson. Now he runs the Unruh Institute at USC. Did his stint. Did you go over the FPPC now, right?
Oh, no,
No?
I'm sorry, that was Roman.
Somebody else already bailed? Okay. So here's the deal. Dan did a stint at FPPC. Dan and I started a pilot project amongst college students, okay? Steph and I went down last week to LA, trained some USC students to get them engaged in this process peer-to-peer, okay? Not based out of Sacramento, but with these USC and Berkeley students, we hope in 4 years are going to reach every single one of the college campuses in California with honest-to-goodness, nonpartisan information, so that 70% number that's now dropped to 50% doesn't go to 30% 4 years from now. All right? So that's what we're doing. And I just want you to know, these kids, Steph, were they not? You're graduating seniors, one on the paper, you'll be going on USC Daily Trojan. These kids were pumped. They were so thrilled that I spent 90 minutes with them, giving them media training. How do you do interviews on radio and TV? And now they're reaching out. Each one of them is taking half a dozen college campuses in California to reach out to the college, paper, and radio, and then helping us design a strategy to get out in social media. So thanks for giving me an opportunity to do that. Citizenvoice.org is it. These guys can dial you in on that. I really commend you guys, because I'll tell you, and by the way, I just want to say, whoever said there, there's a lot of aggression and, like mudslinging campaigns, geez, having worked on campaigns from, let's say, the presidential, I've never seen that. Well, I guess we have. All right, anyway, so, keep up the good work. I got to just tell you, I'm going to go speak. I don't have time for a lot of this, but I'm going to speak in a couple weeks. I was invited to an elementary school up in El Dorado Hills, and I'm going up there to spend an hour with K through 6th graders talking about voting. Why? Because that's what it's all about, my friends. If we do not engage the younger generation, anybody in this room if you ought to have these numbers memorized, we are on a continual, with a blip in 08, but if we're back here again, we are on a slide in terms of participation amongst people sub 35. I don't want to see that continue, and I hope you don't either. Thanks a lot for your time.
All right. Thank you, everybody. That's going to conclude our program for the night, but the party's not over. So first, I want to thank our panelists. We thank you for all the great sharing and advice you guys have brought tonight. I want to thank Sean, actually doubled as our moderator and our program director for tonight. So thanks for pulling this all together. And also, we have an entire team of people. We have a whole SMC SAC leadership team. If you're on the leadership team, it's everybody kind of all around. But Laura's here, and they're all standing behind me. There we go.
They were eating. We have your back.
But anyway, so thanks to all of them for helping pull all this together. We also want to recognize our sponsors. Obviously, the Urban Hive has been a long time partner of ours. We've hosted many events here, so we're grateful for the use of their facility. How many of you enjoyed the pizza earlier tonight? Right? Why aren't there more hands? Was it gone? Oh my gosh, it's hot Italian pizza. Gosh, it's delicious. So thanks to Hot Italian Pizza for kicking down some good pies tonight. Carrie Shear, thank you for your capable live streaming services tonight. It's great to be able to get this program out. Actually, you wouldn't believe we get quite a few people tune in live during our events, and then also watch archive footage. So it really is a huge service.
I'm sorry to tell you, we were outrated by Honey Boo Boo tonight, so.
Oh, shoot.
And it's a rerun.
Dang it. I'm gonna have to spread more rumors. So anyway, one other thing I want to let you guys know about, we have an upcoming event. We have a partnership that we've had this year with the Sacramento Business Journal. We've been doing these great Connectionopolis events. They've been great events to network, and we've been providing some speakers for those events. Those events are actually coming to a close for this year. They're doing a final event that's coming up on October 25th. It's actually, they're calling this one Networktopia. And it's basically just going to be networking. So we're actually not going to be providing a program for that, but it's actually going to be hosted at Sierra Forever Families, which is a great nonprofit in Rancho Cordova, if I remember correctly. So please check out that event and join us with the Sacramento Business Journal. We'd love to have you. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our raffle-istas, Alicia and Kelsey, to give away all the good prizes.
All right.